Today I wanted to talk about the process of composing a piece called Pacifica that I wrote for orchestra back in 2017. And the reason that I want to talk about that piece in particular is because it is, I think, the first piece that I ever sketched out by hand rather than just completely composing it in the computer. That was the way that I operated throughout most of high school. And I think this is the first instance of me really handwriting a lot of the musical content of the piece before actually putting it into the software. And the other reason that I want to talk about this piece is because it is being premiered very, very soon on my channel on February 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So figure out whatever time zone that is for you and mark your calendars. Now you may be asking, Jordan, does this have anything to do with the Dad Village Symphony Orchestra premiere that's happening at the exact same time on the exact same day? And the answer is that it's a secret, but yeah. So I actually happen to have the sketches for this piece, and that is impossible to read. I wanted to do a quasi-score video type experience where I'll show you images of this giant piece of paper and basically talk about what made it into the final piece, talk about the different sections and things that got changed or totally cut out, and sort of interweave that with the recording that will be premiering. So sort of a sneak peek, if you will. So the most striking thing when looking at this is the header, which says Symphony No. 1 Sketches. Now, anyone who is familiar with the orchestral work that I've done will know that this is not my Symphony No. 1, but it was going to be Symphony No. 1, The Pacific. I wound up going with a different P word, not to invoke Ben Shapiro there. But yes, this is going to be the first movement, and I have written the Roman numeral 1 and then so far. And then there's sort of a structural outline. So the largo, quarter note equals 45. I think we wound up changing that to 44 just because it's it's an actual metronome number. But I used to do like all my tempo markings in multiples of 5, which eventually I stopped doing that and tried to ascribe to the typical metronome numbers. And the largo is meant to represent the shore, and then the moderato, dotted quarter equals 100, is setting sail. So there is some kind of narrative here. I don't think that it ever got too explicit. I know there was going to be sort of a longer form narrative over the course of the entire symphony that never came to actually exist. But this movement, or this piece, starts at the shore and sets sail. I think that's all there really is to it, other than, you know, certain moments. There are sort of vague images that I had in my head, but we don't need to get into all that. In terms of the actual musical content, so this is going to be a symphony in A major. I ditched the idea of working in key signatures, calling pieces, for example, Symphony No. 1 in A major or string quartet in C minor, things like that. I found that it gave me a little bit more freedom to not sort of create the expectation of where a piece was going to live harmonically and return to, even though other pieces that have those types of names don't necessarily follow those things. That it was just like a mental thing that I needed to get rid of for myself. But yeah, so it's written after slow introduction, so I guess I wanted to write the moderato before the introduction, the exposition, so to speak. And we've got some orchestration on this repeated motif, and I'll go ahead and play that now. That did wind up making its way in there. Pretty straightforward A major triad in the low strings there. And then the violins come in on this very wavy figure. And this isn't, the repeat signs here are not notated like this in the score. This is just a way for me to sketch very quickly. And so if there's a measure that's being repeated, I can, you know, do that little symbol, and then if I want to repeat an entire 4 bars, I have the first and second ending there. That's not exactly how I do it now, but that was sort of a shorthand. And then we have the basses come in on pizzicato, outlining A major 7. The violins are still doing their thing, but they're moving in contrary motion. No, they're not. What is wrong with me? Can't read my own freaking handwriting. And the way the violins are moving here, we have, instead of moving in parallel motion, it's just similar motion. So the first violin is going up and down on a minor third there, and the second violin is going up and down a major second. And this is sort of 4 bars shifting from an A major 7 to... That's not right. It should move to a B major with an added 13, so it keeps the top G sharp in the bass pizzicato. But actually, what I have sketched, oh, that comes later. Okay, so initially, this sort of introduction before the actual melody comes in was going to be a lot longer, and I must have actually heard it in the software and decided to cut it out to make it only 8 bars long, and also to have the harmonic shift in it. Yeah, it is supposed to go to B major, but that got changed later. Then the clarinet comes in on this melody, and then the second clarinet takes the repetition of that. I don't have that detailed here, so I don't know if I was originally intending to have 2 iterations of that, but it's certainly too short with just one of them. And then I have piccolo in here. There is no piccolo in the actual piece. And then flute 2 doubling the piccolo at the octave. I don't know why flute 1 wouldn't take that, but that's what I wrote. And here we do have the actual B major harmonic shift. It says flutes take melody, and that's it. I remember getting really, really, really stuck there. Like, that was the portion. All of this stuff was before starting college. It was like the 2 weeks going into the semester. And then once the semester started and I had actual lessons to go to, I stopped being able to write music in terms of what came after that in the actual exposition. However, I did also sketch the intro, which we can take a look at too. So there's these gigantic, really, really dense chords, and I think most of them are the same. Most of them were left unchanged, except Carter Pan made me change the last chord, for the better, is for the better, to a B minor-ish type thing, rather than, I think it went to a B major 7. Then that's what that A sharp there is. But strangely, I don't have any actual chord written under that, so I don't quite know what was going on there. And then on the left of the staff there, I have labeled all the different voices, which a lot of attention to detail there that I don't necessarily do now in my sketches. Kind of leave that for later. And then the 4 times, this A major 7 times 2, and then a flute chord. It's actually a more fully voiced woodwind chord now. And then the English horn solo. Something I'm noticing is that I didn't have the actual like first violin line that goes into the big chords. The first instance of writing that rhythm is in the English horn solo. And then the accompanying chords become every quarter note rather than just 2 quarter notes and then half rest. And yeah, man, every single note in this sketch is labeled about what it's supposed to be. And then there were some things that I did to alter the rhythm of the English horn so that it wasn't obeying the bar lines every time. That was another thing that my professor really insisted on, was, you know, don't let the bar lines dictate your rhythm. So instead of it landing on the whole note, sometimes it's held over for an extra half note, or not half note, like an eighth note or a quarter note. And then what isn't labeled, this actually wound up changing to a trumpet, a muted trumpet and a clarinet at this A sharp here, after the strings give that chord. And then this is meant to echo sort of the thematic material from I keep calling it the exposition. It's not a sonata form. It's just the moderato, I'll just call it that. But yeah, this is trying to take the material that's being introduced in the English horn and give it a relationship with the material that's going to be introduced in the moderato. But that actually also wound up being changed. That characteristic triplet wound up being smoothed over. It's just eighth notes. But then on the next system, we have the violins, the first violins, and actually the flutes. The first flute got added to this. We have the first instance of explicitly that motif that we heard in the clarinet in the moderato. This line has a little bit of a different contour to it. Oh, actually, what is really different here is that this instance of the first violins giving this motif, that only happens once in the real thing, but here it's written to happen twice. That's a big thing that gets changed often when I'm sketching things, and then once I actually am able to hear someone other than myself play my music, and by someone I mean the software, it really reveals when things are like too long or too short. That's something I often get wrong in my own mental space, and even when I play it out, I sort of have a way of sort of deceiving myself that something is the right length. So that's just sort of an interesting thing. And then this proceeds much the same way. I have meno mosso ? Written. No, it did not. There was no meno mosso right there. It did not slow down at all. It just stayed the same. More instances of 2 chords and then a woodwind thing. 2 chords, woodwind half note. Then a viola line. Again, this got smeared across the bar lines a little bit, so it doesn't quite look like this in the actual score, but more or less the same. And then I have viola continues lyrical stuff. So I guess I didn't feel the need to give myself very much detail. Oh yeah, and above it says start transition to the moderato. So yeah, then the accompaniment turns to eighth notes, and then we have a little horn thing. And this is something that wound up getting sort of echoed in the moderato, but that wasn't, there's no instance of that being written out here. Introducing the brass, horns 2 and 4, so the low horns, and tuba. No trombones, though. Okay, that's interesting. And then at that point, I'm just writing out chord symbols, which, cool. More instances of this sort of triplet motif. And then the final instance of this brings us into the moderato. But what I have, instead of like writing this out in notes, I just wrote at the bottom of this page, keep doing this, throwing in other chords like F sharp, do rising flute septuplets, the third one on an E chord with the horn solo, beat 2.5, so the and of 2. I don't know, I guess it was probably quicker to write this out than to notate all of it. Yeah, I mean, that's all that's on the page. The only other thing is that on this side it says, you can't see it, it says Symphony in A major, Jordan Holloway. Yeah, nope. So yeah, that was my first delve into sketching music. It's something that I continue to do with most of the pieces that I start to write. But yeah, sketching music like this is something that I have found super, super useful. And it's sort of fun to see like how I started doing it versus you know, the way I do it now, which is not something that I often share. And so I just thought it would be cool to show this in this video. Now, obviously you only heard the parts of the recording that reflect what is written by a pencil in this on this giant page. So if you want to hear the rest of the piece, definitely mark your calendars for February 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern. It would mean a ton to me. Appreciate y'all for watching this. I hope that y'all found it as interesting as I do, and I hope to see you at the premiere of this. Also, make sure you like the video so more people see it. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.